Hello, Professor Bars.
Hello.
Um, I would like to ask you, for those in Romania who may not yet know you, how would you briefly introduce yourself and your work, generally speaking, but also in the field of medical cannabis?
Okay, thank you. Well, first, thank you for asking me on this talk, and I look forward to teaching your colleagues in the new year. I'm a neurologist and specialize in brain injury and stroke and neurological rehabilitation mainly. I started work with spasticity also, and in that context, I was asked to be involved with the development of a drug called Sativex, which turned out to be the first licensed cannabis medicine made by a company then called GW Pharma. So I was been involved with cannabis for about 20, 25 years. And then more recently, in 2016, I was asked to do a report for the UK Parliament on whether cannabis should be legalized for medical use. And then soon after that, I was asked to get involved with writing the first prescription for cannabis in the UK for a little boy called Alfie Dingley. Um, and that prescription was written in summer 2018. And as a result of that and the campaign that his mother, Hannah Deacon, undertook, before that and after that, the law was changed in the UK in November 2018. And so immediately on that day, I set up the Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society with Hannah, which is still running. Now has about 500 members, and that's the organization which we hope to partner or will partner with your colleagues in Romania. I also set up the Cannabis Industry Council in 2021, I think, which is a trade body in the UK. And then I ran a medical cannabis consultancy with Hannah until very recently. So that's very briefly my history into cannabis.
So, you mentioned Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society. What is it, and what is its mission in relation to clinicians and patients?
Well, it's a society for any clinician, so it doesn't have to be medical doctors. It can be pharmacists, nurses, therapists, anyone with a clinical background, perhaps even a neuroscientific background. So it's the Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society. So it's not for organizations, it's not for clinics or producers, it's just for individuals who are clinicians interested in cannabis. And we now have for about 500 members. Um, and our main purpose is to educate the clinical community, and to an extent to educate the public and politicians as well. But our main focus is education for the clinicians. We run a monthly teaching course. Every month we produce a lot of booklets about how to prescribe and what to prescribe, some of which is relevant to the UK, some of which is more relevant to anyone with an interest in cannabis. So our main focus is on education of clinicians and making sure everyone is up to date. They needn't be prescribers of cannabis. There's only about 200 prescribers of cannabis in the UK, and we have 500 members. So it obviously means that most of our members are just interested in cannabis and want to learn about it and want to make a right decision for their patient, but they don't want to prescribe it. So we are not just for prescribers, we're for any clinician with an interest in medical cannabis.
From your clinical and educational experience, why is now an important moment for doctors and other health professionals to learn about medical cannabis?
Well, I think it's a good time because there's now 71 countries around the world where cannabis is legal for medical use. We're not talking about recreational use, but for medical use. So it's now becoming widespread, really. It's not around the whole world yet, of course not, but I think in a few years it pretty well will be. Um, it's gaining traction, as they say. And there's still a lot of resistance in some quarters. Some medical bodies are very against it. Um, but overall, I think it's now becoming a credible, sensible solution, not a cure-all for everything, but for some conditions like chronic pain, chronic anxiety, and chronic neurological conditions like epilepsy, for main example, is very helpful medicine. And now I think it's important that any doctors involved in those, particularly those three areas, psychiatry, pain medicine, and neurology, particularly, it learns about it. They may not want to prescribe it, but I think they have an obligation now to give a sensible, balanced opinion to their patients. And so now I think is a very good time for Romania to be involved in that global move, and we're very happy for the MCCS in the UK to help that out as much as we can.
Thank you very much. What are some of the most common misconceptions you see among clinicians when it comes to prescribing medical cannabis, and how does education help address them?
Well, I think the most misconception that's seen not just in from doctors, but in the in the public, in the press, is that medical cannabis gets you high, as street cannabis does, but it doesn't. It can do, but it's very unlikely. A proper prescription of medical cannabis shouldn't get you high, because CBD is co-prescribed with it, and CBD counteracts the high of THC. So a proper medical prescription, first of all, shouldn't be prescribed to someone at risk, of risk of psychosis, for example. So we try and screen out those people who may not be right for cannabis. And secondly, it shouldn't get you high. The risk of psychosis with medical cannabis prescription is virtually zero. Not quite zero, but virtually zero. That's the main misconception. Another misconception is it's addictive. It isn't addictive. In recreational use, something like 9 or 10% of people using it recreationally can get dependent on it, cannabis dependency syndrome. But that's dependency is different from addiction. So it doesn't get you addicted, and it doesn't get you high. They're the main misconceptions. The other main misconception is there's not enough evidence for it. And I think if people look at cannabis as a pharmaceutical product, that's probably true, but cannabis doesn't lend itself to being a pharmaceutical product and analyzed as a pharmaceutical. Double-blind, placebo-controlled studies aren't relevant to cannabis because there's 500 different components. It's a very variable product. It's a botanical product. Getting a placebo is very difficult. So looking at it as a pharmaceutical product is, in my view, impossible. But if you look at the real world evidence, that's all the other evidence accumulated, observational studies, case studies, etc. The evidence for cannabis in certain conditions is now overwhelming. So I think the view that there's not enough evidence is also wrong, but you've got to look at it, the totality of the evidence, and not just the pharmaceutical type evidence.
Could you walk us through the Medical Cannabis Explained course you will deliver on 10th of February? So, what are the main topics and structure?
Sure, this is a course I do every month for members of the MCCS. I've done that for about 6 years now, so I've trained about 1,000 people through this course. It's a 3-hour course, and it's not designed for detailed prescription. It's designed as a background introduction to medical cannabis. So we start with a little bit of the history of cannabis. Each is about 15, 20 minutes in each section. The next section is on the endocannabinoid system, which is so important because mainly, not exclusively, but mainly that's how cannabis works in the human body. Then we have a section going through the plants and how it's grown. And then the most particularly the phytocannabinoids in the plant, both the major THC and CBD, but also the so-called minor cannabinoids, which have a role to play, like CPG and CBN. We talk about other components of the plant, like the terpenes, which are so important as well to give it the overall effect. And then we talk about how you might take it medically. We talk about vaping and buccal oils and oral tablets and other formats, how to get the medicine in. Um, then we talk about the evidence a little bit, about what it's good for, what the evidence is that shows it's useful as a medicine, and the other evidence that shows it's not useful as a medicine. It's not useful for everything. So we go through the good things and the things that aren't yet proven. And then finally, the last section is really how to prescribe it. So that's more for those who want to think about prescribing or understand the prescription process, and that's how to prescribe oil and how to prescribe flour and the dosages and such like. And then we end up with some case histories of real people who have used cannabis and what they've been treated with. So that's the core of the program, and it takes about 3 hours.
Um, what is this course? Who is this course designed for? I mean, Is it only for doctors or also for pharmacists, psychologists, therapists, other health professionals, or even, I don't know, patient organizations or patients who are interested
Yes.
in finding how it works?
Yeah, it's not designed just for doctors. It's designed for any clinician really who wants to be interested in cannabis. So most of our courses always have some doctors on them, but we also usually have some pharmacists and usually some nurses, because in the UK, pharmacists and nurses can prescribe cannabis as follow-up, so they are involved in the whole process as well. So but it's not just designed for doctors. I think, yes, I think an interested patient would probably find some parts of it useful as well. They might not want to know to the detail of how to prescribe, but the interesting bits about the history and the endocannabinoid system and the plant and the terpenes, I think anyone with an interest in the topic might find it helpful. But it's primarily designed for any clinician, doctors, pharmacists, nurses mainly.
From your experience with the previous cohorts, what are the most important skills or insights the participants walk away with after this course?
Well, I think obviously greater knowledge. There are some people who come to it who do know something about cannabis, but also many people who come to it don't know anything about cannabis really, except what they've heard in the press or on the street or in conversation. So I think they go away from the course with a greater knowledge of what cannabis is, what it's good for, what it's not good for as well, the contraindications to prescribing. The course, I should have said earlier, of course, also describes the side effects of the treatment and those people that aren't suitable for the treatment, the contraindications. So I think they take away a lot more knowledge about cannabis generally, and hopefully they feel empowered, they feel more knowledgeable in order to discuss with their patients sensibly, and also if they want to prescribe.
Can you also share one or two practical examples of how clinicians have changed their practice after attending your course?
I think the obvious example is that those who haven't prescribed so far go away from the course and start prescribing for their patients. In the UK, that means you have to join a clinic because it's not really readily available in our National Health Service, our state medical service. It can be, but it's not. So I think the main example I can give is there's those who've come to the course interested, perhaps a little bit doubtful about it, a little bit cynical about it, but they've come to the course and they've gone away, they've been enthusiastic about it, and they've gone away and started prescribing. So that's what I'd like to see, is after every course, at least one or two people who've come go away and start prescribing for their patients so we can increase the numbers of people who are now benefiting from medical cannabis.
This course is also CPD accredited, and for Romanian doctors and health professionals who may be less familiar with the UK system, what does CPD accreditation actually mean in practice?
Well, in the UK, forgive me, I'm not familiar with the system in Romania, but in UK, every doctor and also other pharmacists and nurses and others have to undertake a certain amount of continued professional development every year. The doctors
Mhm.
have to do about 50 hours every year. So they have to go on courses, conferences, or meetings at their hospital that are CPD accredited. That means that the course they're going on or the lecture they're going to has been screened and approved as a valid educational opportunity, if you like. And there are bodies in the UK where you have to go and say, "This is the course I want to do. Will you please accredit it for CPD?" Um,
Mhm.
that counts in the UK. If you go on that course for 3 hours, that counts for 3 hours of your annual training. So doctors have to do 47 more hours, but they've done 3 hours worth of training. Um, I'm not sure what the situation is in Romania, but it is UK CPD accredited. And if that's helpful in Romania, they can also count 3 hours of their annual training requirement against this course.
Also, I read that it's international CPD. This certification is
Yeah.
also available in other countries as well. So
It's international.
I want.
It depends if your country, Romania, actually accepts the international CPD certificate. Hopefully it does, but I'm not sure. But that's what it is. It's a training certificate that I've done this training, and this training has been approved.
And you actually answered, but I want to emphasize as well, how can a CPD accredited certificate in medical cannabis help clinicians in their career development and also in building trust with patients, colleagues, and institutions?
Yeah, well, I think it shows anyone who's interested, their colleagues or the patients, that they've done a proper course. They understand a little bit about the basics of medical cannabis, and the patients can be reassured that they understand what they're doing a little more than perhaps they did before, and they know how to prescribe it. It's not the be all and end all. I mean, after you've got the certificate, you will still need some mentoring and support in prescribing. You can't go out and prescribe for everyone for every scenario and every condition after that 3 hour course. So you do need more training and more mentoring and more support. But the course is a start. So I think the certificate shows people that you're interested in cannabis and knowledgeable about medical cannabis.
Knowing a bit about Romania through our collaboration until now, how do you see the relevance of structured education in medical cannabis for a country like Romania, where access and regulation are still developing?
Well, I think it's important to put on these courses like this, and of course, it's not the only course. I hope you'll develop your own Romanian course that's more structured and more slightly more relevant to the Romanian medical population and maybe the Romanian public. But I think it's a start. This course is internationally recognized, and and clinicians who've gone on it come out hopefully more empowered and more knowledgeable. So it's a start. But I think then you should use this as a platform to launch your own internal Romanian support and education. And for example, we are now the Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society is now an international body. We have, I think it's 19 international ambassadors working in 19 different countries, and they're all trying to develop their own medical cannabis clinicians support and affiliate them to the MCCS. So the MCCS is, though it started in the UK, it's now an international body because there's not many countries that have got their own cannabis clinicians support mechanism, their own society. A few countries have, but very, very few. So we've got all the mechanism. We've got the teaching courses, we've got the brochures, we've got the publications. So it'd be very nice if Romania developed its own society and affiliated that to the MCCS, then we can support each other.
So speaking about this, what made you and Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society open to collaborating with Victoria Mea Association as a partner in Romania?
Well, that was mainly you, Alexandra, because when I was working with Hannah, as I mentioned earlier, we met you. We were both very impressed with your enthusiasm and your dynamism and your willingness to get on and do things. And it seemed an ideal partner for us in the UK to help you, not do it for you, but to help you, support you in your task of getting medical cannabis more available in Romania. So we're very, very pleased to be working with you and your association. We couldn't be more pleased about that.
Thank you very much. It's honoring for me. And I also would like to speak about honoring the memory of Hannah through our courses and through everything that we will bring in the
Yeah,
educational field in Romania.
that'd be lovely.
Um, Looking beyond the 10 of February course, how do you envision the ongoing collaboration between Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society and the Victoria Mea Association in terms of future trainings and supports for Romanian clinicians? What kind of
Right.
courses can we
Yeah.
have in the future? How often?
I'd like to see the basic course, the 3 hour course in February, repeated every whatever
Mhm.
often, perhaps every 6 months or something like that. Of course, new doctors, new clinicians will want to come aboard. They've missed that course, and they want to perhaps come to the next one. So having that as a rolling program is good. The society also is beginning to launch, it has launched two now, advanced training courses. So if you're a pain doctor, there's a pain course online. There's already a neurological course online. There will be a psychiatric course online. So there'll be about 5 or 6 different online courses, which you just pay a little bit of money for. You don't, it's not a personal course, face to face. It's an online course, and you just do that, and it'd be nice to see that as a sort of support for the more advanced doctors in Romania. Once they've done the basic course and they're getting used to prescribing, getting the more advanced course will be useful, which we can help with. And we're very happy just to work with you. Obviously, I think you and Romania will need to set up your own courses, your own society, your own education, but working alongside you and being associated with us at the Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society will be wonderful.
If you were speaking directly now to a Romanian doctor or health professional who is hesitating about joining the 10th of February course, what would you say to them?
Well, I say come on the course to start with. I think they'll find that cannabis is actually a very rewarding medicine because we're dealing with people with chronic conditions who don't generally respond to other medicines, like chronic pain. It hasn't responded to ordinary pain medication. Epilepsy hasn't responded to anticonvulsant medication. Chronic anxiety hasn't responded to the psychiatric interventions. So we're dealing with people with long-term chronic conditions. And not all of them, of course, but many of them, something like 80% actually, can be helped by medical cannabis properly and safely prescribed. So it's not suitable for everybody, it doesn't help everybody, but it helps a lot of people. And I think doctors coming on the course and then taking on medical cannabis will find it very rewarding because these are people I'm sure familiar to me, to your doctors, your clinicians. They're people you can't do much with. Take epilepsy. These are many of them adults and children with resistant epilepsy. There's nothing we can do. We've offered everything we can. There's pain. We've offered all the painkillers and all the ways of helping the pain that we can. Anxiety. We've offered all the psychiatric interventions and medicines that we can. There's nothing else to be done. So offering these people something that can help them and help them safely, that's a key as well. It's a safe medicine, is something I think they'll find very rewarding. And therefore, I think it's a good time now to join in and get things going in Romania.
So for those who decide to join us on 10th of February, what is the one key outcome you hope they will take back to their patients and their practice?
One outcome that medical cannabis is useful. It's for most people. It's safe for most people. When it's properly prescribed, it can be a really useful, helpful medicine. And I think if that's the one message to take back, don't be cynical about cannabis. Don't reject cannabis because it's got many, many decades of stigma attached to it and anti-cannabis attached to it. So try and forget that and look at the positive things about it. It's a very useful, very helpful medicine. If that's the one message they take away from that course, that's what I would like. So they go away and see if they can help their patients by prescribing medical cannabis. They'll find it very helpful and very rewarding.
Thank you very much, Professor Barnes.
Thank you.